Good morning. Thank you for taking the time to join us today for another member training webinar, this time today on influencer marketing for BC wine brands. I hope everyone is smiling, staying safe as we head into a holiday season and look forward to a new year. My name is Ashley Spilak. I'm the Content Marketing Manager for the Wines of BC. I work in synergy with my talented team to manage content, communications, digital advertising, and other products and services for our members. Part and parcel to our everyday work, particularly for larger consumer marketing campaigns, is integrating influencer marketing strategies, which we are seeing more and more of these days in the marketing world. At Wines of BC, we regularly contract with influencers to personalize our brand, amplify key consumer calls to action, and to try to reach target audiences that may be otherwise harder for us to penetrate. The tool we use in-house is Clear Influencer Marketing, a digital platform that we offer as a BCWI member service to help you vet, target, price out, and eventually contract with the right influencer. Please see our social media guidelines, which I will link to in the chat for more information on that. Now, in getting started, I'm thrilled to welcome back a global leader in Instagram marketing and a former BC resident, Jenn Herman, aka Jenn's Trends. Jenn lives and breathes Instagram marketing. She'll connect the dots for us today on Instagram and influencer marketing for BC wine brands. She has years of experience, has done work with Yahoo Finance, Fox News, BBC, CBS Radio LA, and Social Media Examiner, just to name a few. So we're lucky to have her here today. Jenn will present for 45 to 50 minutes. After the presentation, we will commence with a short Q&A using the chat on the right side of your screen. Feel free to add your questions at any time, and we'll move through those. We hope you find today's presentation valuable, and over to you, Jenn.
Thank you so much. Hi, everybody. We're going to go ahead and get that started. Oh, I have to kick it back to the beginning. We were testing slides beforehand, so there we go. That's better. Perfect. All right. So hi, everybody. I am so excited to be here again, talking to all of you for BC Wines. And yes, we are talking all things influencer marketing today. Just a little recap. Obviously, Ashley did a great intro. But while I leave this up here, while a few of you show up in the room, I just want to remind you that I do talk really fast. I know it can be frustrating, but we have a lot to cover and a lot of things that I want to make sure we tie in on this topic. So we will go through, like I said, about 45 to about 50 minutes. I will be talking at about this speed the whole time. So keep up as best you can. If at any point you want to grab your phone and grab a screenshot of the slides so that you have that information, some of these slides do have a lot of bullet points. That might make it easier than trying to handwrite everything. And I'm sure Ashley can get you a copy of the slides as well. If you want them afterwards, that's perfectly fine. And you can go back and reference those as well. So let's dive right in. Let's not waste any time. I want to start out by defining what influencer marketing is. And I think it's really important to understand because there can be a lot of confusion around influencer marketing. And does that mean celebrities? Does that mean, your friend next door? Who is an influencer and what is influencer marketing in general? So for the most part, this is a simple definition of it's when a brand leverages someone with an audience of their own to exert some influence over that audience. And these can really be anybody. So who is an influencer? Well, if you're looking to buy a new car, influencers could be your next door neighbor, your friends and family. If you're specifically looking for a minivan because you're going to have another kid, then you're going to talk to those that have minivans. Those people are influencers because they're going to influence your decision. They're going to talk about how many cup holders there are. They're going to talk about whether or not the seats recline all the way, how much storage room is there. Those are going to influence your decision and what brands you choose to go test drive and eventually purchase. So that would be what we call a nano influencer. That's somebody who has a relatively small circle, a small sphere of influence, but can be incredibly powerful. Now, in your industry, that could be somebody who just happens to post on Facebook that they tried your wine and they're like, this was amazing. This was the best Pinot Noir I've ever had. You've got to try it. And 3 or 4 of their friends go out and immediately purchase your brand because somebody else talked about it. It's incredibly powerful. People trust implicitly what that person says, but it's usually a relatively small influence. Next thing could be a micro influencer. So Micro means it's a little bit bigger, a little bit larger sphere of influence, but still nothing huge. Maybe a reach of, a few thousand at most, somewhere in that that kind of avenue of size. This could be somebody with a big audience on Facebook, and they post about it on Facebook and all their friends see it. Though it could be somebody who maybe has a small local podcast that reaches a few thousand people. That could be something you would consider a micro influencer. Macro are going to be those who start getting into like the tens and hundreds of thousands. This could be an industry expert. This could be something where maybe a magazine, a newspaper, somebody again, maybe with a larger podcast that talks about your brand. It could be somebody in the tourism space that is talking about your brand, your vineyard, your winery, your specific individual wine. That would be somebody that has a larger scale effort. And then there's the mega influencers. Those are those celebrities. They're the ones with millions and millions of influencers, and they're going to cost you a fortune. So we're not even going to talk about those celebrity influencers today because most of us cannot possibly afford to work with them, let alone go through the process of working with somebody of that level. Now, if you have that capacity, if there is a celebrity that happens to show up and wants to talk about your brand, that's great. But that's typically usually more like they happen to come by or they happen to try it and they talk about it. That's more of like almost a user-generated content type influence. It's not you going out to their PR team and saying, hey, we want so-and-so to actually, promote this. Then with those megas, you start getting into like millions of dollars per post. So we're going to focus on those nano, micro, and macro type experts or influencers in today's session. So why does influencer marketing work? Well, because people trust people. People don't trust brands. If you talk about your brand and say, we have the best Pinot Grigio you've ever had, okay. Like it has to be a really good marketing campaign to sway me. But if my best friend who sits with me when we drink our Pinot Grigio and have a good old girls' night says, this is the best I've ever had, I'm going to listen to her because she knows my taste. This is something we do together. I trust her. I respect her. I value her opinion. And that's why influencer marketing works. It's somebody else's fresh opinion that is typically more trustworthy than what a brand would say about themselves. And that is why this is such a powerful tool that you really can't ignore. Now, I'm not saying you have to go out and spend a bunch of money on influencer marketing, but it's definitely something you need to be embracing because more people will try. Or brand awareness. They are different, okay? Brand awareness may translate into sales, but brand awareness is about people recognizing your logo, your brand name, your location, your product, that sort of thing. Sales can tie into brand awareness, but sales is about cha-ching. Click on that, purchase now button, coming in and actually saying, I want a case of that. Here's my credit card. So although they can overlap, they are two separate purposes, and you have to define those so that you make sure you're working with the right influencers and with the right campaign management to achieve the desired result. If your goal is sales, but you end up creating a campaign focused on brand awareness, then although your campaign could technically be successful, you will never view it as successful because it didn't bring in the sales. So the difference between the two, and when it comes to a social media level, is that sales equals clicks. So if we're looking for sales, it means we're looking for website clicks. We're looking to drive that traffic, whether it's, link in bio on Instagram, whether it's a link on Facebook, whether it's going through an e-commerce site, something like that. That click translates to sales. And if you want more sales, I get it, especially right now, especially with the holidays, especially with everything in our current global, circumstances where, we have so many restrictions. Of course you want sales. I get that. But sometimes you really have to walk before you crawl, and the brand awareness leads to sales. So sometimes starting with brand awareness can be an easier place to start, get up the engagement, get people talking about you enough that they get their own interest in wanting to purchase, and that will lead to sales in the long run. But if you come out of the gate shooting for a ton more sales, influencer, match your aesthetic or style. This is super important, okay? I am the epitome of, pencil skirts, 4-inch stilettos, hair, just like you see it all slicked back. I am not your laid back surfer chick, okay? Let's just get that straight. So if I'm going to partner with an influencer, I want people who align with my lifestyle, with my brand voice, with how I communicate content. I am not going to necessarily partner with somebody who has a completely different audience than what would appeal to me, right? So you need to do the same thing. Who are you targeting? What is the price point of your product? Are your wines a higher end product? Are we looking at $50 to $100 a bottle? Or are we looking at somewhere in that, $15 to $35 bottle? That makes a difference on the influencers you choose to work with. If you're going for that higher dollar bottle of wine, you're going to want to work with more luxurious, more high-end influencers that have a higher style, your brand voice, all that sort of stuff, and find influencers that align similarly. You will need to know if the audience of that influencer is your target audience, similar, so maybe those kind of 30-year-olds, or are you going after a more refined audience, maybe those who, in their 50s and 60s? Well, if you're going after that super young, trendy, super fun 30-year-old, and you pick an influencer whose target audience is about the voice, they're just like, fine, I'll promote it. And they're promoting all these products to the point where their audience starts to be like, who are you? What are you even talking about? What are you promoting? And they stop listening. If you partner with somebody who maybe only works with 2 or 3 other brands, then they're more likely to be supportive of you and interact better with you. Their audience is more likely to be receptive to it. Of exchange. There is an exchange of some sort when there's influencer marketing involved. It could be free product. Maybe you send them 2 free bottles. That's an exchange of value. Or it could be, I'm going to pay you, $300 to post about this. That's an exchange of value. Whatever it is, you need to know what your budget is, what your allocation is, and determine if that influencer is willing to work within that budget. Again, free product, rates, combination of the two, all that sort of thing. All right, so where are you going to find those influencers, right? I mean, they're out there. We know they're out there. But where are they? How do we find them? We, just give you all this criteria to find the right ones, but where do you find the influencers themselves? Well, a couple things you can do. One is old school search. So here's 2 screenshots. I went onto Instagram and I searched for Vancouver Island foodie. So people in a very specific geographical region that have an interest or blog about or share on Instagram about food, because food and wine obviously hand in hand, right? So I could reach out, I could go look at these accounts and say, okay, these people would be good, these people wouldn't. It starts to give you a list of people who might align with what you're looking for as an influencer. I also looked for, quite simply, BC Wine and found a bunch of them. Some of them are travel bloggers, some of them are, wine bloggers, that sort of thing. But again, you can go through here and start to see people who are in that very specific niche of what your product is that are out there creating content around this. And it might be a chance to work with them. So a simple search for that alignment. Again, you have to figure out what that alignment is and what works for you. But things like people in the food industry, people in the wine industry, people in the resort industry, things like that could all be good examples that would work for you. Another thing you can do, and this is a free tool, is to use the Facebook Brand Collabs Manager. Yes, that's the name. I know it's the stupidest name, and I don't know why they couldn't, it was long enough. I guess they didn't want to make it collaboration, so they made it collabs because it's fun, but it's super annoying. So if you literally take that term and go Google that, you will go to your Facebook Brand Collabs Manager. Now, when you get in there, it will link you to your Facebook account. And if you've linked your Instagram account, it'll pull in there. Now, this is a screenshot from mine, so this isn't relevant specifically to your industry, but I teach social media. And this literally says suggested people that would be ideal, most likely for me to work with. They're aligned with my brand, my audience and that sort of thing. And look, they tell you how many people are in their audience. They tell you average engagement of each of those people. So I can see, oh, okay, this person's only getting 2% engagement. This person's getting an average of 5 to 10% engagement. This person's getting more than 25% engagement. Helps you start to narrow down who you might want to work with. And again, gives you some fresh ideas of people to reach out to. So you definitely want to go check this out. Again, just Google Facebook Brand Collabs Manager, and it'll take you right to that site so that you can go through there. Okay, so now you've gone through, you're going to start, Yes, there are influencers that you can reach out to and you can be like, hey, we want you to, send you a couple bottles of wine. We want you to, post about it on Instagram and Facebook. And, do you want to do it? And they may say yes. But that is a transactional relationship, right? You give them product or money. They post about it. Do they really care about you long-term? Not really. It can work. Not saying it doesn't work. Not saying a lot of brands don't do that. But if you really want to foster long-term ambassadors of your brand, people who will rave about you even when you're not paying them to, you want to build relationships. And so, you want to interact with their content. You want to, before you even ask them for anything, go like their post, go leave some comments, watch their stories, share a story of theirs. If they had a really great tip in a store, or they tagged you in a story when they can't happen to come by, that's a great place to start the relationship. If they have a great feed post that talks about something related to, again, a tip, a pairing suggestion, a great recipe idea, share that with your audience. Give them the exposure to your audience before you ever ask for anything. Start building that relationship by lifting them up. Also, observe how they promote, post, and interact with you and others. So before you reach out and say, hey, we want to give you some free product, will you write about and talk about our brand? Look and see what they're doing. What are they doing with other brands? When people leave comments on their post, are they replying? Are they engaging? Are they participating in the dialogue? Because if they're not, then they are probably a very transactional type person to work with and might not be the best alignment for your brand if you're really especially trying to work on that brand awareness component. And that being said, don't be afraid to walk away from the opportunity. Like, if you start with a list of 12 potential influencers and you go in and you're like, okay, let's go take a quick look and we'll, start building some relationships by reaching out and interacting with people. Well, these 3 never responded to anything we did. They're automatically off the list. Bye, Felicia. Okay, now who do we have left? We've got these 9. Well, these 2 have been super responsive. Let's definitely, build on that a little bit more, and we'll keep focusing on the other ones, but let's really put the attention on those 2 that seem to be a really good fit and that seem to have a good relationship potential. So those are the types of things that you want to do as you evolve this process. Again, it's not an overnight hiring an influencer. This is something that takes time to build up these ambassadors. You also want to look at their metrics. And there are a lot of public-facing metrics that you can look at before you agree to work with an influencer, and some that you can ask them for if you've started to broach that conversation of, hey, we're ready to work with you. We want to get some more information from you before we move forward. So things you're going to want to look at publicly or review their posts for performance. Things like likes, comments, any of that sort of stuff that shows how their engagement is. And engagement rate, simple math, is going to be number of likes divided by number of followers. I'll say that percent, that's a great engagement rate. Something around 1%, well, that depends. Do they have 25,000 followers, 100,000 followers? One per other posts are really high. That's a giant red flag to walk away from that opportunity. Also, like I said, as you start to build that relationship with them, ask them for their metrics. Anybody who has done any sort of influencer marketing can tell you what their average engagement rate is off the top of their head, and they have data to back it up. So they can actually go deeper and say, well, if you look at likes divided by total follower count, yes, that was 10% for 100 on 1,000, but really only 500 people, and they should provide them to you if they want to work with you. If they're not willing to give that to you, assuming they've worked with people and they're not willing to give that to you, that's a red flag. They don't have to give you the brand that they work with, but they should be able to give you those metrics. If they've never worked with an influencer or as an influencer with a brand, they wouldn't have those metrics. That's okay. But that's someplace where you want to start looking at what they're creating and ask how many other campaigns they have going for the period of time where you want to work with them. So this time of year tends to be a busy time of year, right? Everyone's upping their holiday sales promotions. So if they're going to be working with 6 other brands while you want your campaign with them, that starts to become a red flag. You're going to get buried in the chaos and the noise of all of this other content. So maybe you go, okay, let's hold off. What are you doing in January? Let's schedule a campaign for January. So keep things like that in mind as you're planning out working with these influencers. Now, when you decide to move forward and you say, this is the one we want to work with, it is imperative that you set very clear expectations. There needs to be a written agreement. It can be something on a legal document. It can be something clearly laid out in email, whatever works between the two of you, but it has to be a written agreement that both parties have agreed to. You need to confirm compensation, whether that's free product, whether that's some sort of fee, combination of the two, some sort of exchange of something that needs to be defined in that agreement. You're going to outline the expectations on the influencer, meaning they're going to create, for example, 1 feed post, 3 stories, and 1 video in the feed in a 3-week period, or maybe 1 IGTV video in a 3-week period. Okay, you're going to give them very clear parameters as to what's going to be created and in what time period. If you simply say, yeah, create 3 Instagram posts, well, they could do those all next year, and that would be in agreement as listed, because you didn't give them a term of time to complete that work. So you want to very clearly specify how many posts and in what time period. Don't go crazy and be like, well, we want 10 posts in 3 days. No, that's obviously extreme, but make sure that you both agree to those terms in terms of how many posts and in what time period. You need to provide them with any additional information they need to promote that product. Hashtags you want them to use in the post, you have to give them those hashtags. They're not going to figure it out for themselves. If you want them to tag your account and or any other accounts, you need to specify that and provide those handles or links. If you're going to provide a coupon code or a purchase code, you need to provide that to them, and you need to make sure it works. Any links that you want associated with that, whether you want them going to a specific link to view something, sign up for something, maybe it's, signing up for your monthly wine club, whatever that is, you have to provide them those links. Now, this one is really important that you understand. You do not get to control their creative capacities. You get to say, hey, we want 3 posts in a period of 2 weeks that showcase our brand in a positive light with a clear focus on this bottle of wine. That's what you tell them. From there, they know what works, okay? They know if they're going to go stand outside. They know if they're going to sit at their dining room table. They know if they're going to go set up a picnic in a park. They know if they're going to, have a close-up, or if they're, 5 people around the bottle of wine, 1 person around the bottle of wine. They know what works. They've been creating their own content. They know what drives engagement. They know what drives results. Let them create the content. It's more authentic, which means it connects better with their audience, which means more results for you. And it's a better representation of how others view your brand. If you try to over control that conversation and say, well, we want exactly, in this specific environment, we want exactly this many people, and we want these colors in the background and everything else, they have no creative control. It's going to stand out like a sore thumb. It's not going to perform well. And it starts to mitigate how your brand looks in a way that starts to look a little too marketed, a little too controlled, and people can start to recognize that, and that can actually detriment their impressions of your brand. So leave them creative control. Give them some basic guidelines, but let them have creative control over how they create that content. And you want to provide a timeline for when you want the post-performance results delivered to you. You don't necessarily have access to all of those results, how many website clicks, how much engagement, how much reach, all those sorts of things you may not have access to. So you have to say within 1 week of the campaign ending, you want them to send screenshots of all of that information so that you have it, so that you can reference how well that relationship worked. And you can say, okay, great. We know that campaign ran for this amount of time. We reached this many new people. Now you can start to look and see whether that translates to more sales on your end. But you need those metrics, and you need to clarify when you want those metrics delivered to you. Okay, so I know this has been a lot, right? This is a lot of technical stuff. This is a lot of the foundation, making sure you have everything in place to do what you need to do to make all the pretty stuff. So now let's talk about pretty stuff. Let's talk about types of content. So again, different campaigns, different types of content, right? So here's an example of something you would do for brand awareness. And this is from Uncork BC. She's actually one of the ones that came up when I looked for BC Wine as a potential influencer, right? So here's a photo. a nice, easy, beautiful photo, clear focal point. You can see the wines. It looks like they're on either like a barrel or a wood tabletop, something like that, very rustic, very, very similar to the type of branding and type of creative content you would be looking for. Now, this caption is the key to the brand awareness component. It says brand new winery at Hello Someday Wine, making BCWI wines, and award-winning winemaker Mark Simpson celebrate with loved ones or enjoy quiet time. This wine is meant for toasting your someday moments. Their current portfolio offers 2 wines, and then she lays them out. It does not talk about sales. It doesn't tell you where to go to purchase. This is brand awareness. It's going to her audience and saying there is something new coming out that you should be aware of. That is a good brand awareness campaign that you can coordinate with an influencer to have them do something similar. Here's another one for brand awareness. This is same account, but this is an Instagram story. And I love this one that she did where she said, I've listed every BC winery offering wine advent calendars this year. Sign me up. I want me some wine advent calendars. And she listed them all, right? So this is one of those ones where she shared a feed post to a story, but she's now tagged as well all of those wineries that are doing wine advent calendars. So if you were one of those doing a wine advent, she's just giving you the exposure to her audience to say, these people are doing this campaign. You can go check it out. So it would hopefully translate into sales. But again, it's a brand awareness campaign in the sense of introducing your brand to new people who may not be familiar with you. Now, let's move into that product or service promotion type content. So here's an example from BC Tastes Better. And again, this is what an influencer campaign would look like, right? So they tag that they're at Sumac Ridge. And again, good image, right? There's a clear focal point. We're focused on the left third of the image. There is stuff going on in the background, but it's blurred out. So there's a very clear focal point. There's good color scheme. There is blue. Blue is a good color for Instagram. So this is a good image that captures attention in the first place. And then it says, join Sumac Ridge Winery for the second of their Black Sage Hall monthly dinner series on Friday, November 20th and Saturday, November 21st. Chef Kevin Dovu will create delicious dishes from seasonally focused ingredients in order to maintain proper COVID, et cetera, et cetera. Call to book your 6-person table with your bubble. That is an action. That is specifically saying, go sign up. So that's pushing an actual product or service opportunity through an influencer for the brand for Sumac Ridge. So that would be an example of you say, this is the call to action. This is when we have it available. This is what we want you to, promote in terms of the details. You do what is needed. Now they may have provided this image to BC Taste Better, or this may be an image that they took in and of themselves. You have those options to negotiate that with those influencers as well. Here's the story example of, again, product and service promotion. So this is from Clerk & Co. This is a story that they created, and it said, they said fall picnic at Shabberstone State Winery tonight. If you're in Langley, BC, visit their picnic area. So this is somebody talking about they went there. They enjoyed it. They are telling people about it, and they're saying, go there. It could also fall into kind of a brand awareness campaign in some way. This is a bit more UGC, user-generated content, in the sense that somebody created the content, and then you can see Shabberton actually reposted this to their story. So that's what this is a screenshot of. But it's a chance, again, for other people to take action and say, oh, yeah, I'm going to be around Langley. We need a place to go with the kids. Let's go there and hang out in the picnic area. So that pushes more of a call to action and gets people to actually show up at your property. Testimonials. Also incredibly valuable. So this one is from BC Wine Girl. And I love this one as an example of a testimonial because this is so relatable. When you read this caption, she goes, my first #wine club shipment from #Silk Scarf Winery. When I opened the box, I was slightly disappointed to see 3 Pinot Noir, as it's not usually my wine of choice. But my God, it is insane. Light body, but full of flavor. Not just fruits, but a slight hint of tobacco and smoke. Loving this beauty, and am super glad now to have received 3 bottles of it. So that is a testimonial type campaign, right? That's someone saying like, I wasn't really sure what to expect, but oh my gosh, it was amazing. I can't live without this now. So that becomes trustworthy. That becomes something I go, well, okay, if she liked it, maybe I should go get me some of that. So they're more likely to take action on that. Again, this is part of an influencer type campaign that you can be creating related to this type of information. You can use these kinds of things and tell, your influencers, this is the kind of content you're looking for, that sort of thing. But this is more of a testimonial side versus either the brand awareness or the sales side. Okay, so another component to think about is using branded content. Now, this is a technical aspect that you need to pay attention to. So if you've been kind of like half listening to me, pay attention. This is important, all right? I want you to zone in on this for a brief minute as we explain what branded content is. This is required when there is a, quote, financial exchange. Free product is a financial exchange. Branded content applies to Instagram and Facebook. It's more prevalent on Instagram, but it is actually required on Facebook as well. Other platforms have similar things, but I'm assuming most of you are using primarily Instagram and Facebook. What that means is one of you is a creator, one of you is a brand. So the brand is the one that gets tagged in the creator's content. And by tag, I don't mean just like at mentioning. It's an actual tool to use. Again, this isn't that brand collabs manager. I know, the stupid name. But if you go in there, you can actually see insights. It pulls in the data between the two accounts. So you can see what your creator is doing and actually see some of the insights. It's not great detail, but you can see some of the insights. This means that when you, and I've got a couple examples that will show this to you, it's the creator saying that they're doing this in partnership with your brand. That is a disclaimer basically required by government authorities, especially in the US, that shows this was a paid and compensated piece of content. That this person didn't just come out on their own and be all like, hey, I tried this wine and it was amazing. It's them saying, hey, this brand sent me free product or some sort of compensation, but it's amazing. It's a way of disclosing that that was a partnered relationship. And as I said, I can't stress this enough, this is required. Now, these are not the same as sponsored posts. Sponsored posts are ads. That's when you've put money behind your own content to get it into the feed as an ad. Branded content is when there's a partnership between two companies. So this is what it looks like. I don't have any examples from the wine industry. Excuse me. But this is an example of stories and feed posts. So feed post on the left where you can see Jenn's Trends, paid partnership with 360 Marketing Squad, which is my own marketing group with the other three people you see in the photo. But in this case, so I was the creator, 360 Marketing Squad was the brand. I created a piece of content whereby I was talking about 360 Marketing Squad, but in this case, 360 Marketing Squad would have compensated me in some way to post about that. Now, similarly in the Instagram story example, it's kind of hard to see because it's white text on kind of that light pink background, but it says the same thing at the top. It's Jenn's Trends, that's my account, and paid partnership with the Digital Gal. I know many of you know Amanda Robinson. She's done a couple ads webinars for all of you. And so in this case, I was promoting her ads program. So I am the creator, she is the brand. I created content that was in some way compensated to me for posting about her brand. And so that's where you see the paid partnership at the top. Okay, so to round this all out, now that you know how to get started, what to set up as your criteria, what types of content work, to actually pull all of this together and have this actually work, we need to talk about determining results. How do you measure performance? Because your definition of performance may be different than somebody else's, right? So first of all, you want to review campaign performance. This is a screenshot from the Clear Influencer campaign tool that Ashley mentioned. And so in this one, you can see a quick highlight for Instagram posts, which is the top line. Instagram stories is the one with the little plus sign. And so you can see this was the account was Van City Wild. And then you can see she had a series of posts. So she had a story, then there was a feed post, and there was a story. So this is showing you she did one feed post. It had an engagement of 4.1 thousand, so 4,100 engagement on that post, and it reached almost 52,000 people. Now, how many of those people are already in your existing audience? There's probably some overlap, but that's 52,000 people, most of whom probably are not familiar with your brand. That's great, brand awareness right there. From the stories, she did 24 posts. Average total engagement on that was 7,400 and reached a total of 136,000 people. Again, that's going and saying, okay, great. Brand awareness, we're seeing a lot of reach. We're seeing a lot of engagement. That's good. That's telling you that something is working if brand awareness was your campaign initiative for that. So to actually track what's working based on whether you chose sales or whether you chose brand awareness as your campaigns, use trackable codes or links. So give people like a bit.ly link, bit.ly/, and you can customize it. So you can actually see how many clicks were provided on that link. You can use other link shorteners as well. You could use UTM codes if you want to do that, that track to your website. So you can actually track all the traffic through a UTM code. Those sorts of things. If you want to give people coupon codes, where if you give that influencer specifically, like I usually get like JH50 or Jenn 100 or whatever like that. So they put my name in the coupon code. And that way, when I go check my sales, I can go see how many people use that code. And I can see we generated, 22 new sales using that influencer's code. So you can start to see who's performing better than others, because not everybody performs well, even when you give them the same opportunities, right? It could just be circumstantially, it could be their level of effort, could be the right audience or not. Lots of different things factor into that. And those are the things you want to know. Who's driving the best results for you? You're going to want to monitor hashtags. You've told them what hashtags to use. Monitor those hashtags. See what content is being created around that. Monitor your @ mentions, how many times you were @ mentioned in that campaign and by others during that period of time. If there are location tags involved, if you tagged your physical location, that's something to think about. And story mentions or tags as well. So monitor all those sorts of things while you know that campaign is going on, track them and see how that differs than what your normal campaign is, as well as influencer versus influencer. You can also have the influencer send data in a spreadsheet and or screenshots displaying performance. So again, you've turned around and said within 2 weeks of that campaign ending, we want you to send us all of our data and performance, so you can have all that to track, but also continue to monitor long term. Okay, this is really important to understand that a campaign may end tomorrow, but that doesn't mean that the influence ends tomorrow. So I follow a bunch of influencers, right? I follow a bunch of, bloggers and people that would be considered those influencers. And yes, somebody posts a pair of shoes that I will go and purchase right now, like literally leave purchase done. I want them that quickly. Other people I may be like, that's pretty cool. I'm going to screenshot that. I'm going to bookmark that. I'm going to save that for later. I'm going to send myself that link because I'm not ready for that right now. But in 3 months, I may be. So these campaigns aren't always going to be an immediate conversion. They have long-term impact. And that goes back to building that relationship with these influencers, because you may want to do 2 campaigns with them a year. Build that long-term relationship so that it continues. Because if an influencer comes out and says, oh yeah, I tried this wine, it was great, and they never talk about it again, how great was it? But if they're talking about it consistently over and over and over, all of a sudden that audience starts to be like, okay, this person really likes this wine. I got to get me some of this. That may take 3 or 4 campaigns to get to that level of trust. So keep that in mind. Again, keeping these things longer term. And finally, to kind of close all of this out, what does your account look like? I'm going to put some onus on you here, people. So here's the thing. Do influencers want to work with you? You're out here trying to find all these influencers, but if they respect their brand as an influencer, are only going to want to work with brands that align with them as well. Are your accounts dormant, meaning you haven't posted in months? That's going to make them hesitant to want to work with you. Is your content overly promotional and not necessarily fun, educational, resource-based, and everything else? That could impact their desire to want to work with you. So you have to think about what you're creating from that perspective as well. And if you work with an influencer and they promote your brand and they @ mention you, and somebody goes to that @ mention and goes to your account, are they going to be impressed with your account after connecting via that influencer? This is where, again, alignment in brands and styles is important. But you also want to make sure that when someone comes to your account, they go, yeah, this looks great. Now that I'm seeing how the brand conveys themselves, this is something I want to be a part of. So in the long run, are you helping or hurting yourself with how your content is formatted and set up on Instagram and on Facebook? I really want you to go take a good hard look at your content. If that means you need to up your content strategy, then do so. If it means you need to maybe create more of that educational content, think about things like food pairings, not just, hey, here's our wine, but did you know that, this bottle of wine, this specific, type of wine goes really great with turkey, because right now, I know you guys already had your Thanksgiving, but I'm in Thanksgiving mindset because Thanksgiving here is next week. But going into the Christmas season, going into the holiday season, pairing with certain types of meals, give them a great tip on how to build a charcuterie board. These are all things that you can be creating. That doesn't mean they have to come in to your actual location, which we all know right now, with all the restrictions we have, getting people to come on site is hard. But if you can give people all these tips on how to make a charcuterie board and have your bottle of wine placed strategically behind that in the image, they're going to be like, oh, that's a really great, recipe, or that's a really great tip on how to put that together. Let me do that. That can be something fun I can do with my spouse this weekend, and that reminds me, we should get some wine. And again, it leads into that brand awareness. It leads into that sales. If they're already following you and seeing that content, they're more likely to stop and pick up your content or your wine from wherever it is they can get it. So keep things like that in mind when you're creating this content, that not only is it what your audience sees, but if you're working with influencers, how are non-followers, people who are coming to your account for the first time, going to interact and see your content? We want them to have a very positive interaction with you. So with that being said, we are done with all of this. It is time for questions. Before we do that, I'll just quickly remind you, you can find me everywhere on the internet as either Jenn Herman or Jenn's Trends. You can go to the website. You can go to Instagram at JENNS_trends. And I also invite you to join my Facebook group. If you search Jenn's Trends in social media on Facebook, you'll find both the page and the group. But the group is where I share all breaking news related to Instagram, where you can ask questions about anything social media related and get good, safe space answers to all those questions. So that's a great place to come hang out as well. And now we have time for questions.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Jenn. And it looks like we have some questions. I think some people were experiencing a little technical difficulties. So just a reminder to everyone, yes, this video will be shared after as well as the presentation. So you will have lots to reference if there's any part that you want to review. But maybe we can just keep going through some of the questions and see what we can get here. It looks like some people had problems with it freezing for some reason, so that's unfortunate. Yeah. But let me see here.
So I see Jennifer's comment, what is a great engagement rate?
Yeah.
So average engagement depends on platforms. Just so you know, average engagement on Instagram is about 2%. Average engagement on Facebook is 0.17%. Yes, 0.17%. So anything above that is great. But also keep in mind that is across all accounts in general. So if you, as a smaller business, want to know what's great, it's usually double digit. If you're getting into that 10 to 15% engagement, that would be a definition of great engagement.
Okay, excellent. And I love that Facebook Brand Collabs Manager tool. That's something that's totally new for sure, that I've taken note of. Is there any tools out there that help you really see where their followers are coming from? Because I mean, some of the influencers we've looked at working at, for example, are from the Vancouver area, but their large majority of their followers might be in New York or LA, right, for example, right? So how can we be sure that the influencers we hire actually have the target audience?
Yeah, so a lot of this really does come down to, you have to talk to them first. ask them and say, can you send me screenshots that show, like if I pull up my Instagram or my Facebook, I can show you where my audience is based. That's the ultimate answer. Another great tool out there is BuzzSumo, BuzzSumo. That's another great tool that can be really helpful for narrowing down some of that kind of information, who they are, what their audience size is, information on the audience, information on them. It's a better tool for that kind of component that will allow you to go in. And now that is a paid tool to get the functions and things that you would want. So I wanted to share kind of the simple free options with the Brands Collab Manager. But yeah, you could definitely use BuzzSumo.
Okay, excellent. And members can also reach out to us as well. We can easily vet an influencer for you and to ensure you're on the right track.
Perfect.
Okay. I think we have another one from Brooklyn. If you send a brand a product and don't explicitly ask them to share their opinion, do they need to claim it as a paid partnership?
Great question. That falls into a gray area because yes, technically you provided that product for free. They were in some way compensated to try it and or then post about it. So yes, that's the responsibility of the influencer to create it as branded content because they're the one creating the post. So they should be the one tagging you in it. Now that being said, not everybody adheres to this by any means. This whole branded content is relatively new. Like within the last year to year and a half, did this really kind of become a thing. And Facebook and Instagram don't crack down on it. FTC in the US doesn't really crack down on it. It's kind of one of those like, hey, we told you had to do it. If you don't, it's on you. And if you happen to get, a cease and desist, or you happen to get sued, or you happen to get whatever, it's on you. And in all reality, governmental agencies are usually going after those celebrity mega influencers, right? They're going after like the Kim Kardashians who didn't mention that was a sponsored post and we're going to fine her, $3.8 million for it. Like they're not going to come after small businesses. So that being said, I am not a lawyer. Okay. Don't take any of this as legal advice, but yeah, if someone doesn't do it, is it going to, be a huge detriment to your brand? No, but it's a good practice to get into because my prediction will be that in a number of years, this will be a bigger and, more important component. So the more you get used to using these tools and having those relationships now, the better off you will be. And the better you'll be able to work with influencers because the more that they get used to this and the more that brands get used to this, this becomes that standard of expectation. And if you're working with influencers who aren't willing to do this, that starts to become one of those, well, why not? Like, what are you doing that you don't want to, describe this or disclose this? So yeah, I know that's a really long-winded answer, Brooklyn. Yeah, technically they do need to disclose it as branded content, even if you don't ask them to share it. But that being said, it's not going to, you're not going to end up with a huge legal impact on average most of the time. In theory, disclaimer, asterisk. In general, it wouldn't be a huge negative impact if they didn't tag you.
Okay. I'm not really seeing any other questions. I had one other one just on budget in general. If you're a small winery, and you're looking at including influencer marketing in your marketing mix, and say you spend $500 every 3 months on Facebook advertising, and you're like, okay, well, maybe I want to integrate a little bit of influencer marketing into that and look at some of these nano or micro influencers that you had mentioned that probably offer some affordable rates. What would you suggest as a budget for, like, say, a 3 to 6 month period?
So I can't give you any, hard numbers on this. Again, each influencer is different, right? So some influencers like send me a bottle of wine a month and we're good to go. Some influencers would be like, well, I want a case of wine up front. I want $500 a month. And, there's so much that goes into that determination as to how much content are they creating? How much of it is their own unique content? How much of it are they, having to go out and do a photo shoot for? Do they have to pay their photographer that they have to go out, they have to get a venue location, they have to get permission to come out and shoot with a professional photographer, they have to book the time. So that's a larger campaign management. It may cost them $2,000 to put together the photos that they want to do for your campaign, and they're going to expect you to cover that cost. Mm-hmm. They may be able to go out somewhere, with a smartphone and be like, done, and that was easy and quick. So it's up to the influencer how much their management is. A long-term campaign, you want to budget that in. That's going to be those higher ones. If you're looking at a 6-month campaign, and here's a bottle of wine, great. Yeah. If your cost on a bottle of wine is $5, stories, but that's 1,000 pieces of, or did I say 100 people? So that's 200 pieces of content out there in a relatively inexpensive way. So you have to decide whether you want those, quick hit campaigns. Do you want the relationships as long-term campaigns? And those might become more of a retainer. I'm a brand ambassador for Agorapulse, and I do get compensated. I tell people up front, I'm a brand ambassador. Yes, I am compensated in some way for this. And they pay me a monthly stipend. But I am able to talk about the brand in whatever capacity I want, in whatever tool I want to mention it, whether I'm on a podcast, whether I'm on, a webinar, whether I'm writing about it on social media. So I don't have the limitations to say I have to do this many things. We have a long-term relationship that they know I will continue to talk about that product in a way that augments their brand. So that's what works for us. Other, ambassadors with them have different campaign management because of their relationship and how they're set up. So those are things that you need to keep in mind when you're creating those. Is it more of a retainer? Here's X number of dollars a month and do what you can to talk about us. Yeah. That's a long-term relationship. You may get to that point after 2 or 3 years of working with an influencer. Off the bat, you're going to have to set those more specific campaigns and specific expectations.
Great. Well, we have a question from Leanne. Do you have examples of a clause or language that brands could include in an influencer agreement so that the brand is covered in disclosure?
Great question. I don't have anything offhand. Basically, anytime the creator, the influencer is creating the content, they do want to say something to the general effect of, this is in paid partnership with this, hashtag ad, something like that says you were in some way compensated to create this content. If you want to, I highly recommend you check out Lisa Fraley, Lisa, L-I-S-A, Fraley, F-R-A-L-E-Y. She is a lawyer and she has all the templates you want for easy download, and they're super affordable. I think she even has a sale going on this week. But you can go in and download all of those types of templates. She probably even has an influencer marketing, agreement in there that you could pull, and that would outline probably a lot of those terminology. She is a lawyer. She knows what you can and cannot say. Now, granted, she is US based, so there might be some slight differences with Canadian legalities, but it's a good place to start and look at some of those disclosures. Most of those things come from the Instagram or Facebook regulations, and you can go look at the branded content requirements in the Facebook help section. It will outline a lot of those things, but any statement that says this isn't paid sponsorship, or yes, I was given this product for free, anything that discloses that, typically on Instagram, it is required in the first 3 lines of text that you disclose that was in some way a paid partnership. That could be hashtag ad. It could be sponsored post, with an asterisk. And you go into the content, something like that. Instagram by FTC laws, which again is more US functional, but does require that disclosure in the first 3 lines of text, because we all know when you're on Instagram, if you don't see the first couple lines, you're not going to see the rest of the caption. So that was the reason they came out with that. I love Leanne's like, we're not, the US does not apply here. We're the Wild West here in Canada. I know. And that's why it's hard, because so many of Instagram and Facebook rules are based in US law because US companies. Yeah. And that's where their regulations come from. So it's hard to translate into other countries. Sometimes we're like, well, this is technically what Facebook requires, but we don't know what your government necessarily requires.
Not seeing any more questions. So we're coming up on time here, just under an hour. So I wanted to thank everyone today for joining us. And sorry if there were any technical hiccups. And a huge thank you to Jenn for her pro tips and examples here. A reminder today of answering all our questions.
And good luck, everybody. Good luck with the holiday season. Good luck with getting those sales up. I know that it is hard. I know there's a lot of, confusion and stress these days. So sending you all the best wishes.
Lovely. Thank you. Bye now.
Bye.